Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, where every single day I try to feature a different industry and a different technology and look at how technology is transforming that industry. And sometimes I like to try and delve a little bit deeper into an emerging technology and help listeners actually see beyond the shiny tech buzzwords and understand where it can actually deliver real value to a business or even help them secure a competitive advantage. Now, I have a few interviews this week with blockchain companies, and I want to try and help with that adoption problem by actually educating myself and everyone listening as to how this tech could actually affect a business and the future of it. So today I invited Paul Snow, CEO of Factum, onto the show, which is an open source enterprise grade developer friendly blockchain platform which is currently utilised by the US Department of Homeland Security, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and so many other leading enterprises too. And the Factom Protocol also provides high throughput and easy integration into legacy systems. And here's an exciting bit, without the need to handle cryptocurrency. So, wow, there are some pretty exciting topics to unravel here. So, enough from me. Buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Austin, Texas, so we can speak with Paul Snow, CEO of Factum. So, a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Paul Snow. I am a developer and programmer in the blockchain space right now. I've done a lot of programming in a lot of different technological areas. Primarily, I started out in the digital printing revolution with PostScript and page graphics and embedded systems, because we were putting these PostScript interpreters into printers. And then I got into the rules engine space, where I created interpreters for everything, including children's software for automating various programs to help with learning, and then got into what I did through most of the 2000s, the idea that we needed a better way of defining rules for eligibility for various assistance programs. And I did a lot of work in the state of Texas and Ohio and and along the East Coast. And a lot of that technology I built around rules engines is driving applications in Michigan, Ohio, and Texas, and various other places. I got very interested in the blockchain and established a project called Factum, and embedded inside of the blockchain was a lot of my experience in interpreters and embedded systems, how to build powerful things with a small set of bytes and a small set of moving parts.
Which brings us nicely up to Factum, which is an open source enterprise grade developer friendly blockchain platform that's utilised by the US Department of Homeland Security, no less, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and so many other leading enterprises too. So it all sounds incredibly exciting, but can you set the scene and help listeners understand the kind of problems that you're solving and what makes this so unique?
Well, in 2014, I was asked to consider how to build a distributed and autonomous application, a DApp, a distributed application. And the problem set that we were looking at was, how do you register software? And the idea is, when I download software, or if I'm a developer, when I decide to incorporate a library, how do I know that library is the right version from the actual developers versus some software that might have some malware inserted into it? And so this whole idea of tracking the provenance of the software that we're installing, configuring, using as components in the development process, that was a very intriguing problem that historically has been limited by the fact that it's very hard to create a worldwide repository capable of tracking all of the software from all of the various sources that it might come from. And I had done a lot of work on the idea in the 2000s about how this could be done, but always ran up into the problem that there isn't a worldwide repository. And I was being hounded to do something, and I was explaining why this couldn't be done. It's something I'm interested in. It just can't be done. And then I realized, no, wait a second. With the blockchain, we now have a way to distribute that registry worldwide and create the kind of system where we not only know that the software is valid, but we know who says the software is valid. And so when I looked at that problem, I realized, well, I really can't do that unless I have a strong digital identity to identify the developers and identify the verifiers and validators and testers in, open source, as well as closed source, that are going to give me the confidence that I can use a particular bit of software. And so I shifted from software registration to just simple digital identity. And then when I looked at digital identity on a blockchain, I realized it's not a smart contract. It's not a coin. It just doesn't fit the paradigms that were available in 2014. So we designed Factum, which was a general purpose data layer for the blockchain that nonetheless allows every application and user to organize their data into effectively lists. We call them user chains that contains only their data and has the ability to cryptographically prove the set of their data independent of everything else in our system. Because in order to scale, any requirement, any system that requires you to know everything that's going on, that system doesn't scale. So data and data sets do not have to be shared with everybody for me to validate them, as long as they're clearly and cryptographically defined as a set of data. So that's Factum. It's immutable data, organized data that can be incorporated into applications worldwide.
And it's my understanding that the Factom Protocol provides high throughput and easy integration into legacy systems too, but without the need to handle any cryptocurrency. So can you help people listening understand exactly how that works? And also, if there's a business leader listening, how they're going to be able to leverage this technology and find value from it?
Oh, well, excellent question, because if that was another problem that I saw when I was looking at all of the public blockchains, is that they all use a coin to drive their functionality, and coins go up in value, go down in value. So the ability to use, say, Ethereum or EOS or most of the other public blockchains, the ability to use that inside of an enterprise application is constrained to some degree by the fact that I can't predict what the cost is going to be over time. The tokens go up in value, then it can cost me more to use the blockchain. If they go down in value, it may cost me less to use the blockchain. Furthermore, handling those tokens means that I'm carrying currency risk. They can go up in value and down in value, and I have to account for that in my taxes, in my the net worth of the company. And in many cases, I even want to take those tokens and put them inside of a server so that that server can interact with the blockchain, because there's basically a payment for every interaction with the public blockchain. And so I'm making my servers a hacker's honeypot, because there's value there that if they are able to hack the server, they may be able to extract the Ethereum or extract, what other coin might be driving my business process and sell it on the open market and make money. So our solution was to break the system up into two tokens. in the public system, where I have incentives for the federated servers that run the Factom protocol to run it and to pay for their bills and to make them excited about being part of Factom, that token, the factoid, is a tradable token, and it can go up and down in price. And it serves as the incentive to run the protocol. In order to use the protocol to write data and organize data, we burn the factoids into a separate token called an entry credit. And an entry credit can be thought of as prepaid fees. The exchange rate between the factoid and the entry credit can be maintained so that the entry credit has a standard and unvarying real world price. Right now, it is effectively pegged to 1/10 of a cent. So you can buy 1,000 writes into the Factum blockchain for $1 worth of factoids. So there is a fixed price. There is a predictable over time utilization of the Factum protocol. And one other feature of the entry credit is that it is a non-tradable token, which means even if someone were to hack your system, they can't get an asset out of your system. If the only thing your system has is entry credits, they can't get an asset out of your system that they could take to an exchange and convert into cash. So there is a security aspect, there is a predictability aspect, and then since it's not tradable, it is not a cryptocurrency. If it's not a cryptocurrency, you don't have the accounting overhead of a tradable token driving your business processes. So for all these reasons, Factum was designed to deploy into enterprise applications and give enterprise applications just straight up access to the data integrity of a blockchain. Now, was part of your question also, why does this system make it easy for businesses to use Factum?
Yeah, because I think a lot of businesses or business leaders will be listening, and they hear a lot about blockchain. They hear all the buzzwords, they hear all the hype. But I'm kind of interested in getting out or helping them visualize exactly how it would work in their world and how it could actually be a real game changer for them.
Well, that is also an excellent question, and it is one of the things that we looked at. So I just got out of a meeting and I made snide remarks about standards. But in context, when people establish standards for smart contracts or standards for how you use connect devices together, like Bluetooth or printer standards or USB standards. Okay, all these standards are very important because we would like our devices to work together and not have to buy unique dongles for every single thing the way we used to back in the 80s. But there's a downside too when you establish standards way too early. And the blockchain is in very early days. We don't really necessarily know how we want to integrate smart contracts into our applications. We don't necessarily really know how we want to handle digital identity. It's so many different supply chains, how we're going to manage supply chains. There's so many different applications of the blockchain to real world problems. And yet we don't have a lot of miles on those problems using the blockchain in order for us to establish a standard that we know will hold up over time. So when we went to Factum and designed Factum, we said the one thing that we know every blockchain-based application or solution is going to have to do, we know they're going to have data integrity, and they're going to have to be able to organize that data. So we concentrated very hard on how to build a data layer that does not incorporate business logic. It brings a straight up simple concept of organized, immutable, ordered data for enterprise to utilize within their applications. And this is huge because it means that the approach that enterprise can take to building solutions on the blockchain can use all the skills they already have. And because you're not trying to take a smart contract language that's part of the blockchain and integrate that into your application, you are instead just taking the data that you have and embedding it in the blockchain. Because of that, that means that the integration into your business processes is very simple, because you're not being forced out into tools you're unfamiliar with. The other really, really cool thing about this is that this approach of providing simple and pure data integrity is going to be compatible with all the standards that will arise as we learn more about the blockchain. So when the W3C standard for digital identity began to take form, and we're beginning to see how we're going to resolve digital identities between different blockchains, Factum was already well placed to implement those standards and to create that interactive experience with other digital identity providers, because it did not embed specific identity approaches into the blockchain. It provided the digital data security and immutability that could be used as a fundamental layer on a different layer that is the digital identity. So this is what makes it good for business, because it is flexible enough to fit what today's needs are and flexible enough to adapt to future standards as they're established.
And the success of any technology, whether that be inside or outside of the blockchain industry, of course, is achieving adoption and mainstream adoption. So where do you think we are in the current state of enterprise adoption around blockchain technology? And also, what are the barriers of entry for traditional businesses that are rooted in blockchain's lack of accessibility?
Well, that's another marvelous question. There are a lot of challenges we face as a blockchain company, and there are a lot of challenges that enterprise faces in adopting the blockchain. Most of the explanations that I will give you about why the blockchain is needed are very compelling. And enterprise hears those comments in that analysis, and they say, we need the blockchain in our applications, right? And I can give you some examples. For example, I can say data security. Now everybody goes, yeah, want that data security. I can make the observation that there's two aspects of data security. There's the aspect of keeping things secret. But there's also the aspect of ensuring that data never changes unless through authorized processes. So the blockchain can ensure that data is immutable, and the blockchain can provide a mechanism for only authorized parties to add to the record, which basically amounts to changing the data without changing the past. So you end up with basically an audit trail of how data progresses through time, and each change comes from an authorized party. I can tell you that, provenance of data, immutability, separating the idea of keeping secrets from the idea of ensuring that data is immutable and only gets updated by authorized parties. That's compelling, but how do I put that into my application? And a lot of the enterprises are looking at solutions like Hyperledger and solutions like Ethereum or Ethereum clones, or even straight up Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. And all I have to do is put enough options in front of everyone, and their eyes glaze over and they go, I just don't know how to solve this. I think I'll wait until somebody else comes up with a solution. And that's the problem that the blockchain companies have. They're seeing a lot of energy when they do their presentations, but they're finding enterprise has a hard time signing the contract to actually move off the dime.
So is there anything that you're working on at the moment that particularly excites you? And what kind of effect do you think that work's going to have on the ecosystem as a whole and actually help generate that greater adoption that we're talking about?
Well, I believe our work with DHS is very, very powerful. It demonstrated that we can create digital identity for devices, sensors, and we can secure the sensors and we can secure the data that they collect. And as we incorporate that into the developing standards around digital identity with the blockchain, I believe we're going to find applications in supply chain. We're going to find applications in loan origination. And they're going to, even though loan origination is very rarely used in the same sentence as securing cameras and sensors, right? But they both have a similar problem. They have a provenance of data. They have a security of process problem, and they want to both present documented proof at some later point that the data originating in the past is exactly the data that needs to be applied into loan approval in the case of loan origination, or enforcement if that's going to be used in evidence by security cameras or something. So these kinds of things, wins in these areas, are going to be driving adoption. And as the regulators begin to realize that immutable audit trails built in real time not only save business money, it also saves money at the government level, then you're going to see wider adoption of the blockchain.
And I think as well, as soon as we see more and more Fortune 500 companies actually being brave and transparent about how they're leveraging blockchain, that's when we'll start to see even more adoption. But currently, it does kind of feel that everyone's been a little bit cautious and they're hiding behind NDAs. Does that on its own frustrate you as someone trying to scale adoption?
Well, they are accused of hiding behind NDAs. And I would say hiding is probably not the right term.
Yeah.
It is the course of business, and most of the solutions that enterprise are looking at when it comes to the blockchain, most of those solutions are complex and time consuming. And the larger companies are slower adopters than your small companies and your medium-sized companies. So we're going to see adoption in the smaller companies and the medium-sized companies who have to, as part of their business plan, break into the status quo, differentiate themselves from larger, more established businesses, and take market share. And the larger businesses, if I go and look at medical records, if I go look at, if I go look at loan origination, banks, and insurance, these industries are dominated by very, very large parties who can certainly benefit from the blockchain, but they are generally going to benefit from the blockchain and start implementing blockchain solutions when they're forced to by smaller players that begin to make inroads. And frankly, look around industry. How do large companies usually adopt technology? They wait until some smaller companies have proven it works, and then they buy them.
Yeah.
And I believe we're going to see that pattern of larger companies buying blockchain companies going forward, because that is going to be the easiest way for large enterprise to buy in. The phase we're in right now is a lot of interest in buying blockchain consulting in order to build proof of concepts, as well as initial applications. And then based on the success of those applications and tests, you're going to get more and more actual deployed blockchain applications, and you're going to start seeing that adoption. But I do believe in the end, adoption is driven by smaller, more nimble parties.
So the Factom Protocol also recently announced that the first clinical trial using a public blockchain has gone into production. Can you share some of the details around that and why it's such a big deal? I mean, I understand you probably can't share too much, but is there anything you can?
There are a lot of companies that are securing clinical trials and securing basically the provenance of data in the whole pharmaceutical business. And we're working with one of our customers or one of our partners to embed this kind of technology into real world applications and real world solutions. The particular blockchain solution that's going into the clinical trials, this was done by Spherion over in the Netherlands, and they are. I'm not as familiar with the actual details of their implementation, but this does highlight how the Factum protocol works. And that is that we have many, many parties that run the protocol and have interests. And Spherion is one of the operators of the protocol. Factum Inc. Should not be confused with the Factum protocol. Factum Inc. Is a different entity. And but the Factum protocol itself provides an opportunity for us to work with and cooperate with, and sometimes cheer on other people in the ecosystem as they develop and deploy applications.
So, what is your grand vision for Factum then? Is there any kind of teasers that you could possibly leave with us about the road ahead?
Well, I believe that the Factum protocol is likely to be one of the most significant crypto technologies that exist. We did something slightly different than everyone else. We did create a data integrity layer that does not impose on developers or businesses or any other user of the Factum protocol. It doesn't impose a particular way of solving problems, which means we're very, very flexible and very, very easy to build upon and very, very easy to upgrade as the technology progresses. And it follows the basic computer science framework that we all understand, which is different layers, different functional layers in an application should be separate. So we tried embedding logic into databases with stored procedures, and we largely don't do that because it interferes with the ability to manage application development and move that application development from one platform to the next. We have a separation between writing data to persistent storage like hard drives and the operating system. You know, there was an idea at one time that we could put intelligence in the drive and have a hard drive do things for applications instead of having the applications do it directly. But that is very difficult to manage, and you end up getting tied into a particular hardware architecture and it's not compatible with other things. So that separation of function of having very clear layers in your applications and in your systems lends itself to the way Factum is designed. And I believe that Factum will be the data integrity layer for the world. And I believe also when you start layering on tokenization, and there are exciting public applications like PegNet that can handle payments and payment processing in a distributed autonomous fashion worldwide, and do so with lower costs and greater simplicity. Factum is well positioned to take over payments and remittance, even micropayments. And the tokenization is incredible for raising money and for capitalization of businesses and projects. And Factum has a very, very strong tokenization story. On top of tokenization is also the smart contracts. And unlike most smart contract platforms, Factum's smart contracts are incredibly easy to build, very flexible to integrate digital identity into them, creating smart contracts that are truly auditable and can serve as the mechanism to execute certain terms in real-world contracts. Most smart contracts on other platforms really haven't paid attention to the real world, but the way Factum is building it, these smart contracts can be integrated into real-world contracts and deal with things such as court rulings or real-world events that affect the value of assets managed by these what we're calling smart contracts. So my vision of Factum is world domination.
That's it. You have to put the laugh in there. So for anyone listening that wants to take a deeper dive into everything that you're doing and learn more about how you're going to be progressing over the next few months, what is the best way of finding you online, joining your passionate community, or just reaching out and asking a few questions? What's the best way of doing that?
Well, we certainly have a Reddit presence that does exist and has links to everything else that goes on in the Factom protocol. We also have GitHub. So we're found on GitHub at the GitHub/Factom project. We have the Factom protocol website, which is www.factomprotocol.org. And Factum Inc. has a website, factum.com, and you can find links from factum.com to all of the other public resources. So pretty much the standard set of characters of Reddit and Twitter and protocol websites and company websites. One of the very interesting things to learn about the Factum ecosystem is to go to the factomprotocol.org and look at the links to all of the parties working in Factum to increase its value, to provide Factum technology to business and enterprise, and all of the incredible projects that are underway.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the blog post that will accompany this podcast episode over on my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, where there'll be this interview and so many others as well. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining me today, sharing your story. And it really does seem that the future looks bright for you guys. And as a data integrity leader for the world, that seems easy enough. But world domination, I wish you the best of luck with that one too. But thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you. And I do most appreciate you taking the time and giving us a little bit of airtime with the world. Thank you.
For all those blockchain non-believers out there, I would say, look, when US Department of Homeland Security, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and other big companies are starting to get involved, I think we all need to start paying attention, because we don't want to be like that guy in the 90s that was telling everybody that the internet was just a fad. So a big thank you for Paul for coming on and sharing his story and the incredible work that he's doing there, and the developments with the Factom Protocol and the high-profile partnerships the network has secured, and the upcoming milestones for the company too. But I especially love talking about the wider context of enterprise adoption of blockchain technology, and actually tackling those barriers of entry for traditional businesses that are rooted in blockchain's lack of accessibility, and also for raising the talking point of the importance of improving security of data storage. But as always, that's it from me and today's guest. We've all put our opinions and our thoughts onto the table. This is where I ask you to tear down that fourth wall and share your opinions, predictions, questions, or indeed anything at all. And you can email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or you can also visit my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, click on podcasts, And if you find today's episode, you should be able to click on all the links of everything that we've talked about today too. But this week I am in sunny Croatia, so it's time for me to get back on my little mini adventure, and I'll return tomorrow with another guest. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.